Coaching common problems, number 1. My team often concede goals on the counter-attack. We're going to be focusing on space and shape in order to correct some of these problems. We've got a basic 4-4-2 formation here, which can be changed and tweaked to cater to what you would normally play with, but the basics remain the same. So we're actually going to be looking at this space in here and what we can do to restrict the space and allow this space here not to be targeted and played in by the opposition. What a player in this position is going to do is draw either the centre back out of position and create a pocket of space in behind and break that line of defence, and also the midfielder could drop back and break their line, allowing a huge pocket of space to be exploited. That's going to give the opposition time on the ball. So what can we do here to restrict the time and space afforded to the opposition? One thing we could do is butt up as a unit. So we're going to close that gap down and we're going to restrict the space on the field. This is going to create pressure for the opposition, but it is one downside to this particular formation here where we're actually restricting the space so directly, is it will allow space in behind. That's not necessarily a negative if you're happy for the goalkeeper to sweep up any long balls, and also if you're reliant on the speed of your defenders. If you're happier that your defenders are quicker, then there's no issue in doing so. You are going to limit the opposition to more long balls or encourage the opposition to play more long balls. So that is one possible pitfall of just pushing up as a unit and restricting the space between the lines. Let me just drop that back. What we could also do, and this is my favoured position with and without the ball here, is drop a player back into this pocket of space. What this is going to do is act as a visual aid, not only for the defenders but also for the midfielders. This defensive midfielder here is going to become a visual trigger for the two centre backs. So we've got a nice triangle here. The movement of the defensive midfielder is going to directly correlate to what these two centre-backs do, because we're going to try and keep in contact with this defensive midfielder at all times, and likewise you've got a closed triangle here, you have an open triangle with the midfield three. What that does with the space is restricts it to two zones, and within those zones we as a team defensively are going to be able to close that space down a lot quicker. And just to highlight the pitfalls of this particular formation is now, from an attacking sense, we've got one less player in an advanced position, which might leave us a little bit lighter in the advanced positions. Some teams in this particular formation might drop a forward player back into the midfield or play a false nine role almost, so that you've got those four in midfield, you've got the numbers there, and you're also keeping the connection with the two forward players, because what we're doing here is keeping the connection between the defence and the midfield, but what we do need to make sure that we don't neglect is the connection between the midfielders and the forward players, because that is going to be where we're scoring our goals. Now we're going to look at what this looks like in practice. So we've gone back to our 4-4-2. I've relabeled this player here CDM, defensive midfielder. I hope you can read that. And we're just going to let this play through. So we've got our space that we mentioned. Now we're going to see what that looks like in practice. We've got the ball in this particular situation. So we're going to see briefly how that defensive midfielder can influence us in attack as well as defence. So we've pushed up. You can see roughly the way the shape of the team is. We've got our left back and our left midfielders working in unison. We've got our right mid keeping the width. We've got the central midfielder taking up a more attacking position, keeping that nice open triangle with the two forwards. And we've got our defensive midfielder here acting as a screen, but also acting as a way to recycle possession. So we might find that the area gets a little bit crowded on the left side, and we can switch the play through the defensive midfielder to the right side, or create a through pass that's going to result in an attacking opportunity. So the defensive midfielder has a really, really big influence on the attack as well as the defence. Andrea Pirlo is the master of seeing the field from this position and just picking his passes. So that is one attribute that you're going to have to consider when picking your defensive midfielder. But also, if we were to lose the ball in this position, the defensive midfielder can see a good area of the field here. They're in a good position to nullify any attacks before they start. So we can close an attack down nice and early, or we can drop off. But what is important to remember is that the central defenders are going to be doing exactly what that central defensive midfielder is doing. So they're going to be keeping the connection, they're going to be closing that space, making sure that they're nice and in contact at all times, taking on the role of the second defender and the third defender, and if needs be, if the defensive midfielder gets beaten, they're in a position to become the first defender and slow the counter-attack down, which is what it's all about, is getting back into position. So the defensive midfielder drops, the central defenders also drop just to cover the space. Make sure that we're delaying the attack and making sure that we're not hit with a quick counter-attack. Also, if the central defensive midfielder pushes on, the centre-backs can tuck up to close that space, but just remember about the space that you're leaving in behind. At that point, those that left-back and the right-back become really crucial because they're going to have to track any runners that are running in behind us. These are a few practical ideas for preventing a fast counter-attack.